Hello, beautiful. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're new around here, my name is Michelle. I'm your Latina makeup mentor that teaches busy women how to simplify their beauty and makeup routines like a pro, because let's face it, makeup does not have to be so complicated. And that is what I am here to do, is to teach you easy tips and tricks on how to actually feel confident with doing your makeup. And today we are diving into something that every makeup beginner and lover needs to know: how to find the right makeup tools. If you've ever felt like your makeup just doesn't look quite right, it might not be the products that you're using. It's most likely the tools that you use. I'm gonna teach you how to fix that. First thing that you need to know to find the right tools, making sure that you have quality products. Now I get it, makeup brushes can be very expensive. If you take care of your brushes correctly, which I'll talk about that, and invest in quality brushes, they will last you a very, very, very long time. I have had makeup brushes for probably 15 plus years that are still in phenomenal shape because I've learned how to take care of them. Also, make sure that I don't abuse my brushes. Finding the right tool and making sure that you have the right shape is also going to help you to achieve the right look. Every brush has a purpose. I'm going to really break down what to look for in your brushes, what kind of shape is going to do what, why you need to choose specific type of brushes, and I'm also going to show you how to use every single brush too. Having the right makeup tools will really make doing your makeup that much faster and that much easier. I have used really poor quality brushes before in the past, and it takes me forever to do my makeup. The right brushes, the right tools, I'm able to pop out my makeup like this and it still looks flawless. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe down below, give this video a big thumbs up, and share this with a friend who is struggling with their makeup, whether if it is that they just don't know what makeup brushes to use, or maybe they haven't washed their brushes since they got them. We listen and we don't judge, don't worry. This is a safe space, but just know you gotta learn how to take care of your brushes. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Let's start off first by breaking down our complexion brushes. Making sure that you have really good quality complexion brushes is really going to help you to get that beautiful, polished, flawless look that you've been wanting. I personally love these double-sided brushes. One, because they are amazing quality, super duper soft. They are synthetic, but they feel like a natural hair, meaning that they're just a little bit softer. And because they are double-sided, it's 2 for 1, so it saves a lot of space in my makeup bag. First brush is this brush right here. This is called the 3D brush. Basic, all-in-one brush that does every single thing on your face. For me, this is the brush that I recommend for makeup beginners who struggle a little bit, don't really know what to do with their brushes, feel really overwhelmed with all of the different quantity of brushes, and they're just trying to figure out makeup. This is also my favorite brush for on-the-go makeup, the one that I use the most. It's going to give you more medium coverage. This brush has this fluffier side right here that is a little bit more rounded, which I like to use to apply my contour with, to apply my bronzer with, and to apply my blush with. I also like using this one to blend because it is fluffier, and usually fluffier brushes are going to give you a more diffused look. This brush also, you're going to notice that it is not super dense, so when I put my finger on it, my finger kind of sinks in a little tiny bit, but it doesn't sink in all the way. So that lets me know that it's a medium density, so it's going to give you medium coverage. This other side, the pointy side, is a little bit denser, so this does give a little bit more coverage. I like using this one more for foundation and concealer, especially because it is pointed, so I can really get in those harder to reach areas like around my eyes, on my jawline, around my nose, anywhere that is a little bit more difficult for me to get the bigger side in. And I also can use this to clean up any mistakes that I make, especially with my contour. Go back and forth whenever I'm using this, but I literally can do my whole entire face, just the one 3D brush. The second brush is this brush right here. So this is called the Buff brush. It is a double-sided foundation brush. This one is a lot more dense. As you can see, my finger does not sink in, so this is going to give us fuller coverage. The denser the brush, the more coverage you get. The fluffier the brush, the lighter coverage you get. Always remember that bigger the brush, the larger the area you're going to use it for. I like using this bigger side for larger areas like my jawline, like my cheeks, my forehead. Then I will use the smaller brush to get into those harder to reach areas, similar to that 3D brush, or we used it in the inner corner of the eyes around the nose. That's what we're going to do with this brush here. I'm also going to use this to apply my brightening concealer shade because it is smaller, so it gives me more control. Always remember, smaller brushes are going to give you a lot more control, while a larger brush is going to spread that color out a little bit more, do the job a lot faster. Then if you struggle with contour, this is going to be a brush that you're going to love. This is called the detail brush. So you have that flat side right there. Again, you can see my finger does not go down whenever I press down on it. So that's going to give me medium full coverage because it is a little bit softer than the buff brush. Then we have have this smaller side here that's gonna give us more of that medium coverage, and you can see it's super, super tiny. Now, because of the shape of this brush being so straight, this is going to work really, really well with the bones of our face because it helps you to just hug into that contour, really get it nice and tight there. Helps you to be a little bit more precise with your contour shape. The brush shape, that is what the contour shape is gonna be, that's gonna be on your face. For your nose contour, you want to use the smaller side. Again, always remember a smaller brush is going to work for smaller areas and for more detailed work. Nose contour is one of those things you really want to make sure that you're really precise with and that you're getting those lines correct. It is a part of our face that most people see first. Having those lines be crooked, it's going to create an illusion. So making sure that you take your time with your nose contour. Speaking of nose contour, this is a brush that I'll talk about again later on, but this is called the smudge brush. This is an eyeshadow brush technically, but one thing that you need to know about brushes is that you can use them for multiple different things. So even though I'm sharing with you specific ways that I like to use these brushes, this is kind of like the beginner's guide. I want to challenge you and encourage you to feel free to use these brushes in multiple different ways. Don't think that it's just like a one size fits all. You can definitely do multiple things with multiple brushes, and this is definitely not an exception. I like it because of the shape. So you have that flat brush right there that really helps you to get those straight lines with your nose contour, get really nice and precise. The smaller rounded side is going to help us to create those brighter highlight effects and give us a more softer effect. I like to also use it to blend out. Since it is round, it's going to help me to get a softer, more diffuse line. Speaking of blending, I absolutely love this brush right here. If you are someone who struggles with blending, or maybe you want a really soft airbrushed finish in your makeup, this is called the blend brush. So if you notice, it is our softest brushes. My finger goes right into it. This is gonna give me very light coverage. You have the smaller side too on the other side that's just a little bit denser, so this is gonna give us a little more coverage. I like using this small side for my concealer, and then I like to use this fluffier side to basically do small circular motions to give myself a nice diffused look. This is gonna help to blend out those edges without moving the product too much. If the brush is too dense, it's going to move the product a lot. And you also wanna make sure that you have a very, very light hand. The biggest mistake I see people doing with makeup brushes, hold them way too close to the front of the barrel. You wanna make sure that you're cutting it in the middle and that you're just being very, very light with it. You don't wanna press down too hard. You just want the brush to glide on your face, and know that the shape of the brush is going to do the work for you. It's a little bit more tapered, more pointy. So that's gonna help me to just use those tips just to go ahead and be nice and precise. If I were to press down, it's going to just move my makeup all over the place, and that's where you get that muddy makeup look. Another brush that is probably a very popular brush, the blush and bronzer brush. So this one has a denser, smaller side, and then you have a fluffier side here. I personally like using the fluffier side for my bronzer because, again, it's gonna give me more of that diffused finish, and I don't really like a heavy amount of bronzer. I want it to look really soft, natural, sun-kissed. I like to use this brush in a circular motion. One thing that I do a lot is usually if a brush is more round, I will do circular motions with it. If a brush is more straight, then I'm gonna do more dabbing motions with it. That just helps me to use the brush for the way that it was designed. But there are exceptions. I want to create more high color payoff. The blush brush, that's a denser brush. I will go ahead and dab it on first. And since it's not super fluffy, I don't want to do any kind of circular motion because that's just gonna move the product around. Fluffier brushes do a better job doing that soft circular motion because it is such a small brush, so it's not really moving the product too much. This is gonna give us more coverage too, more color payoff as well. Then we have two tools that I like to use for powder. Now, there's no right or wrong tool to use. It really comes down to preference. So knowing that a small fluffy brush, the lighter coverage you get. Same thing goes with powder. The smaller and fluffier it is, the lighter amount of powder you're gonna get. It's gonna give you a light wash. I personally like using small fluffy brushes for more of a brightening powder, more pressed powders. This just helps me to have more control. Then we have our powder puff. This is one of my favorite tools to use, but you wanna make sure that you use it correctly. One of my biggest pro tips is making sure that you tap off the excess in the palm of your hand before you press the product in so that you're not picking up too much. Again, it's a pretty dense tool. If I were to just pick up loose powder and press it onto my face without dabbing off that excess and without really working the product into the velour puff, then I'm going to have a lot of powder, and that's where you get that cakey finish. I always start off first in the areas where I am the oiliest, because wherever you place down product first, that is where you get the most product payoff or color payoff. So pressing it in the center of my face where I have larger pores, that's gonna help me to control the oil there. The small fluffy brush, this is the wash brush. The larger brush is going to be for larger areas, while the smaller brush is gonna be for harder to reach areas to really get that precision and have a lot more control. I also like using this if you ever bake. I like to use this to just lightly dust off my brush. Now, the reason why I don't use a large brush like this is because this is going to be harder for me to control. This gives me a lot more control. I can make sure that I'm placing my powder exactly where I want to and I don't get a cakey finish. Let's talk about eye brushes. So this is probably the one tool that I definitely will say these matter, and I would definitely suggest you having at least these two brushes. This very first brush, this is probably my favorite eyeshadow brush of all time because it really does everything that you need it to do. This is called the Bright brush. You have a fluffy, tapered, pointy side, and you have a tinier, more pencil side. Both of them are very fluffy, so it's going to give you lighter payoff, but this brush here, as you can see, is a little denser, so this is going to give us more color payoff. The small brush is going to be more for detail work, while the larger brush is going to be more for blending and diffusing your look. The reason why I love this brush is because it does the work for you. The taper on it helps to hug the brush into your eye so that you have more control. You're letting the brush do the work for you. Things that you want to be cautious of when you're using a brush like this, know that the tip of the brush is always going to be for anything in the crease. The sides of the brush, which yes, you can use the sides of your brush, I like to use for the lid. It just helps me because it's flat. It helps me to have more control. While in my crease, I need something that's a little bit more rounder because of the fact that my eye rounds off into my crease. If I just need something round, that's going to get in there. If I try to use that flat side, it's going to make things really messy. Then you have the smaller detail brush. I mostly use the side because I mostly just place the color on my eyelid. Always going to dab to help me to place the color first, and then I'll go in with fluffier side to go ahead and do soft circular motions to blend things out. With this brush, I'm only going to use the tip, again, only in my crease. I also will use that to line the bottom of my brush. And a thing that you want to keep in mind with your brushes, make sure you're holding it correctly, make sure you're holding it straight. Wherever you want to place the color, that is where you want the brush to be pointing towards. I see it so often where people hold their brush like this and they're going into their crease, but they're doing this. See how my brush is pointing up towards my eyebrow? That's where that color is going. Hold your brush straight. This is going to help me to actually hug my crease and get in that area. Same thing goes for the smaller brush. I'm trying to do my lower lash, for example, and I'm just like doing this. Look at where the brush is actually ending up. Hold the brush according to the curve of my eye. Second brush that I am obsessed with and you definitely need, especially if you want to do eyeliner of any sort and you're a beginner, this is my favorite. This is the Etch brush. So you have this small little smudgy brush and then you have a flat straight brush. So the small smudgy brush, I like using this for eyeliner, especially with cream eyeliner. It does the work for you. With the rounded shape, just helps me to hug my eye. Make sure that, again, you are pointing your brush wherever you want to place the product. I can be kind of messy with it, and because it's a little tiny bit fluffy, it almost creates a softer look versus a very, very harsh look. I used to use an angled brush, but I found that it would always leave a very harsh line, and I like a softer eyeliner. Then I'll use the straight side to go ahead, basically do that pack where you clean off your little wing whenever it's looking kind of messy. This is why I like using this with cream, because I can literally just take it and just clean off the edges and I'm good to go. You can also use this for so many other things. I like using this for liner, the smudgy side. I like using the straight side for my brows to carve them out. So many different purposes for this brush. Feel free to use these brushes for more than what they are. Last up, this brush right here, which is called the line brush. So this was the brush that I used to use for my eyeliner. Again, it's like that angled brush, but then you have the spoolie on the other side. I mostly use this one for my brows now because the spoolie helps to brush through my brows. And then this pointy side, because it is so straight and thin and dense, it's going to create really nice sharp lines. Use it in the areas that I need to have a little bit more control. I used to be someone that I would fill in my brow completely, but then I realized I have naturally thick brows and really all I need to do is create balance by filling in the bald spots. But I also use this if I ever get mascara on my face. Let that mascara dry all the way and wipe it off. It'll come off like nothing. The last two tools that we are going to talk about. First one is called the multitasking brush. So this is what it looks like. It has this flat side here, and then you have this smaller side right here. Flat, larger side. Again, the name speaks for itself. So remember how I mentioned to you about the smudge brush and how this is technically an eyeshadow brush? Really only like to use this one either to create a really quick smoky eye or to use the flat side to apply my matte eyeshadow. Always apply my shimmer, my finger, because it's gonna give me the best color payoff. And then I use a flat brush to apply matte because that's gonna give me the best color payoff. So the multitasking brush. This brush, literally the name says it all. It is a multitasking blackening brush that you can do so many different things with. You can use this to carve out your brows. You can use this to create a cut crease. You can use this as an eyeliner. You can use this as a lip liner, which is what I used it for. You can use it to do any spot concealing. You can use the large side to do any concealing. I've seen people use the large side to apply their cream makeup in that dotting method. The options honestly are endless. Flat side to apply my lip color, to blend in my lip liner with my lip color. Then the last tool, probably the one that you didn't think I was going to talk about, the makeup sponge. So this is something that I could do a whole separate video on. This is a really, really great tool. If you feel like you get carried away with makeup products sometimes, maybe you have too much, that is what this tool is really great for. I used to use makeup sponges a lot for my face. Once I learned how to use my brushes, I stick with my brushes, and I only really use this to either prep my skin with or to apply my setting spray. Every now and then I'll use it to blend things out. But the thing that you want to know about a sponge is going to absorb excess product. Now let's say that you want fuller coverage. If you go in with your sponge, it is going to lighten the coverage of your makeup, especially cream makeup. Biggest thing, you want to make sure that it is damp, that it is not soaking wet, and that it is not dry. A dry sponge isn't going to pick up too much product. And then if it's too wet, it's going to actually break apart your makeup. Pro tip for you, wash it at night, let it dry overnight, and then it'll be perfect in the morning. Like I mentioned in the beginning, your tools will only last if you take care of them correctly. There's two different ways that you can care for your brushes. The first way is with an instant brush cleaner. I love using this because sometimes I don't have time to let my brushes dry overnight. And this, as soon as I clean off the product, dry instantly, and I can use the brush right away. About a minute or so, just to make sure that it picked up, that it has completely dried down. And make sure that you don't use too much. I see a lot of people using way too much brush cleaner. You start with 1 or 2 sprays. You can always add more. If you drench your brush completely, then you're gonna basically soak the brush, and you might as well have just washed it with soap. So the brush tells you how it wants to be cleaned. So if the shape of the brush is more round, you're gonna use circular motions to clean. If the shape of your brush is more straight, you're going to use more swiping motions to clean it. And you really wanna be gentle with this. This is the thing that I see people do. They're so aggressive with their brushes. If you're aggressive with your brushes, they're going to fall apart. They're so delicate. You don't realize how delicate those brushes are. And if your brushes are starting to fall apart, that means you're being too rough with it. The second thing that you can do to clean your brushes, and I recommend doing this at least once a month. I know myself, I'm too lazy to be deep cleaning my brushes weekly, so I will personally do it monthly, but I will spot clean. I try to do it every time I use my brushes, but sometimes I'm kind of bad at that. Deep cleaning at least monthly. You want to use either a liquid or a solid. It doesn't really matter. It's really preference at the end of the day. Biggest pro tip, this is something I learned hard way because I lost 3 pro brushes to this, and I had never had this happen, and it was just me being careless with it, not thinking through. Don't use super hot water with your brushes. I know that especially if you have white brushes, your head is trained to think hot water removes stains. Don't do that with your brushes. You want to know why? Because that heat, even if it's not getting on the actual inside of the ferrule of your brush, which is this inner part right here, the heat is going to warm up the glue, and it's going to loosen the glue. So when you go to do any kind of movement, your brush is going to fall apart, and that happened to me, and it was a very sad day. Don't want it to happen to you. Use cold or lukewarm water. I prefer cold water. After that, I'm never using hot or warm water ever again. Make sure that you squeeze out the water. Don't get water inside of the ferrule of your brush, because that is where you're going to disintegrate things. Don't submerge your brushes in water. That's going to, again, disintegrate your brushes. And if you want an in-depth how to deep clean your brushes video, let me know, and I'd be glad to share that with you. But doing these things is going to really help to make sure brushes last a long time, and also make sure that your brushes give you good results. Besides the fact that you need to clean your brushes because bacteria builds up in your brushes, if your makeup is not looking good, it's because you're not washing your brushes, and your brushes are gunky. Wash your brushes, wash them. I hope that this has helped you to feel more confident with choosing the right brushes for you. If you're curious about any of the brushes I shared, I'm going to link down below a brush bundle that has a couple of the brushes that I talked about. Then I'm also going to link down below some of my individual favorites so that you can purchase them if you are interested. And if you need any personalized help, comment down below, or you can also fill out my color match form. Even though, yes, my color match form is meant to match people to my custom cream makeup right here. Another thing I do is I recommend brushes based off of the coverage that you want, based off of the finish that you want. Option in my color match form that can write down anything extra that you want me to know so that I can help you with your routine. So it makes it a little bit more customizable, because one of the things I truly believe in is that makeup is not a one size fits all, and that we all have different preferences. And that is what I am here for, is to help you to find the best tools, the the best products that are gonna work for you. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, share this with a friend who needs it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss out on any videos like this. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite makeup tool is. What tool are you struggling to figure out? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.